This week on Adventist News Network, celebrating religious freedom in Indonesia.
Humanitarian aid for a refugee community in Uganda.
And what a generation of retiring pastors could mean for ministry in North America.
These stories and more coming up.
This is Adventist News Network, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks for joining us this week.
First in the news, a new distance learning university is expanding education options for students whose work, family, or financial situation puts strains on further study. Herbert Fletcher University is based in Puerto Rico and offers undergraduate and graduate degrees. Students can choose from administration, leadership, instructional design, educational technology, and Adventist teaching. Classes are available in English and Spanish. The school operates through an affiliation with Griggs University. Griggs University is the Adventist World Church's distance learning hub, operating from the campus of Andrews University in the U.S. state of Michigan.
A recent festival of religious freedom in Indonesia cements the Adventist Church as a leading religious liberty advocate in the country. An audience of 2,000 advocates gathered in Manado this month to thank government and faith leaders for their efforts in promoting freedom of belief. The Adventist Church held a similar festival in Jakarta 2 years ago. Since then, interest in religious liberty has grown in the country. Right now, religious groups enjoy a climate of tolerance and respect in Manado. Elsewhere in the country, however, tensions between faith groups remain a challenge.
Adventist humanitarian workers are helping hundreds of Congolese refugee families adjust to life in neighboring Uganda. Thousands of Congolese fled their country after unrest broke out between government forces and armed militia late last year. Now, many of those families are living in refugee camps in Uganda. Adventist Development and Relief Agency officials are distributing supply kits to help these families feel more at home. Kits include blankets, cooking supplies, and mosquito nets. ADRA is collaborating with the United Nations, the Red Cross, and refugee camp staff to prioritize at-risk refugees first, including children and expectant mothers.
In South America, church leaders are noticing a spike in traffic on Spanish and Portuguese websites promoting the Great Hope. An electronic version of the sharing book has been downloaded more than 10 million times in recent months. The book is available for web and flash viewing, as well as versions formatted for iPhone, iPad, other tablet computers and smartphones. And as an iTunes podcast, readers can also request a digital copy of the book via email. The Great Hope is an abridged version of the church co-founder Ellen White's classic, The Great Controversy.
English speakers can find a digital audio version of The Great Hope from Christian Record Services for the Blind. The Adventist Supporting Ministry serves the blind and low sight community, but Christian Record officials say the new audiobook will reach a broader audience. You can download a free copy at sharethegreathope.com.
Adventist ministry leaders recently took a look at retirement statistics among pastors in the US. What they found is that about half of the pastors will reach retirement age in 10 years. Now they're considering ways to address what could be a coming dilemma, whether there'll be enough younger ministers to replace an ageing workforce. Ministry leaders could redouble efforts to train and hire younger pastors, or they could ask older pastors to stay on past retirement. As ministry leaders continue to explore solutions, they'll also take a look at better ways to educate and train pastors in general. Earlier today, I sat down with Dave Gamble, who is examining this issue with other ministry leaders in North America. How are you, Dave?
I'm great.
That's good. Dave, why are ministry leaders addressing this issue now?
Well, we discovered that within 10 years, 50% of the pastors will be eligible for retirement, and that is not a crisis yet, but if we don't do something about it now, it will be a crisis.
Wow, it's certainly tending that way, isn't it? Yeah. What are some of the potential solutions to this challenge?
Well, one solution is to encourage our pastors, our experienced pastors, to stay longer than 65, 66, 70, 75, 80. But that creates some challenges to it. They bring the wisdom to the field, but the downside is that they're separated from the new generations that are coming up. So that's one of the solutions. I think probably a better solution would be to try to begin training younger pastors right now.
Okay, so what's being done to develop this training for younger pastors or younger potential pastors?
Well, it just hit us, this statistic, just a couple months ago. So we are just going through the whole educational training process to see what we can do to be ready for this when it comes. It takes about 10 years for a pastor to become fully experienced. It's not like flipping burgers where it takes 30 seconds to get trained. So we've only got 10 years to work on it. So we need to get going on this ASAP.
Yeah, this sounds like a very significant and serious issue. Thanks so much, Dave.
My pleasure.
When we come back after the break, we'll find out what's inside this week's issue of Adventist Review.
There is a garden in every childhood, an enchanted place where colours are brighter, the air softer, and the morning more fragrant than ever.
Of all life's seasons, childhood is the most beautiful.
Children are the living messages we send to a time we will not see.
Blessed indeed is the man who hears many gentle voices call him Father.
A child can ask 1,000 questions that the wisest man cannot answer.
When I approach a child, I have two thoughts: affection for what he is today and respect for what he can become.
There are no 7 wonders of the world in the eyes of a child. There are 7 million.
Children are 1/3 of our population and all of our future.
He called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, "Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me."
Welcome back. Here's Steve Chavez with a preview of this week's issue of Adventist Review.
You'll be challenged by this week's cover story in Adventist Review, and I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. Adventist and Single highlights a serious issue in the church. Where do single Adventists fit in? Should we segregate them into their own little group and hope they meet that someone special? Or should we just accept them the way they are? How we respond is important. Roughly half of our church members in North America are single. Roy Gain asks and answers the intriguing question, is there a place in contemporary Adventism for observing ancient Jewish feasts and festivals? Read his article, More Holy Days for Adventists. One of our more insightful columnists, Andy Nash, gives away the burden of his latest column with this hard-hitting title, Mommy, Stop Texting and Talk to Me. You'll want to see where he comes down. In that same vein, in Associate Editor Gerald Klingbeil's latest editorial, Media Blitz, he addresses the fact that, like it or not, we're surrounded by an almost unending variety of media influences. Short of ignoring all of them, how do we separate the wheat from the chaff? And finally, in her column, Walls of Salvation, Hyveth Williams challenges the church to be a sanctuary for victims of physical and emotional violence against men, women, and children. These and other great articles are in this week's Adventist Review. Happy reading.
Reading and sharing the writings of church co-founder Ellen White is easier than ever. Cindy Touche explains how new technology can support your spiritual life.
If you're like many others, you're making increasing use of the internet and your smartphone, and with good reason. These things are convenient and save a lot of time. This is why the White Estate is making every effort to keep up with modern technology. We'd like to show you some of our newest developments, which, by the way, are all free of charge. First, there's the internet. At egwwritings.org, you can read and search the writings of Ellen White in 9 languages, and more are in the process of being added. We've also included integration with social media, so you can easily share your favorite quotes with everyone, as well as tools for deeper study such as reference works and research documents. Download books to your computer or phone for offline use, listen to them online, or burn them on a CD so you can listen to them, for instance, while commuting. And if you use an iPhone or an iPad or any Android device, we've also got you covered. Just download the app from the market or store, install the books you want, and read Ellen White's writings wherever you are. These are just a few of the possibilities. Explore the potential of these new projects. We're confident that they can make a real difference in your spiritual life.
Should Adventists get involved in politics? Megan Bronner finds out what you think in this week's social media highlights.
Many countries are hashing out national values at the polls this year, so we wanted to find out what you thought the role of the individual Adventist and the Adventist Church as a whole should be in political discussions. On Twitter, Jenna Hyde says, "We should be advocates for eternal values as residents of our community, but knowing we are citizens of the kingdom of heaven." Jareeb20 says we should support programs caring for the environment and teaching church members to be good citizens. On Facebook, Kurt says we can be involved in politics as long as it stays out of the pulpit, because he has always been turned off by that. He adds, "We are all going to have opinions and stances we take on issues. That is human. Being a Christian does not mean you aren't going to vote. So politics is a part of the society and fabric we live in." Angela says, "Ellen White is very clear on this point. We should not, as a body or individually, support any political candidate. We should, however, be involved in standing against issues that will go against the Bible and religious liberty. This is not our home, and ambassadors do not get involved in the politics of the country they are ambassadors to." Velma says, "Why should politics stay out of the pulpit? We don't govern ourselves, and there are people who died for us to have the right to vote. We should be temperate in all things, and we do need the right people to run this country." Thanks for all your thoughtful responses, and don't forget to join our discussions on Twitter and Facebook.
2 years ago, Adventist pastor Carlos Parra Diaz began ministering to 33 trapped Chilean miners. He sent Bibles down the mine shaft and counseled the miners' worried families. Diaz stayed on the scene until the men were rescued months later. Our book review this week features his personal narrative, Hope Underground.
It was the greatest mine rescue of all time. 33 miners trapped beneath the Chilean desert. With only 2% probability of success, the Chilean government, rescue workers, and family members united in an effort to achieve the impossible. What drove these people to defy failure and persevere against all odds? What impelled the miners to find the courage to fight against almost certain death? How did a small white butterfly, a wayward probe, and a 34th miner all play a significant role in the unfolding of this incredible story? Pastor Carlos Parra, known as the chaplain of Camp Hope, answers these questions with a personal account in his book, Hope Underground. Hope Underground is a vivid description of how faith and hope played a key role in the miners' successful rescue, a role as important as the leadership of the Chilean government and the work of engineers and rescuers. Hope Underground, a true story that has touched millions and that will inspire you to see life's crises through different eyes.
Still ahead on Adventist News Network, why listening may be the best approach for parents raising teenagers.
But up next, this week's Tech Corner.
When I read The Great Hope, there is this fantastic passage that gives me so much hope, and I want to share that with you. Satan assailed Christ with his fiercest and most subtle temptations, but he was repulsed in every conflict. Those battles were fought in our behalf. Those victories make it possible for us to conquer. Christ will give strength to all who seek it. No man without his own consent can be overcome by Satan. When we hang on to Jesus, when we hold on to Jesus, Satan has absolutely no hold over us. And that same power that gave Jesus victory over Satan's temptations is available to us, guaranteed.
Welcome back. As more and more people use their tablets or smartphones to search online, websites need to load faster than ever before. Here's John Beckett with some ideas on keeping your site up to speed.
Imagine for a minute someone visiting your website for the first time. Now, imagine they hit the back button because they're tired of waiting for it to load, or maybe it didn't work on their iPad. Today we'll talk about some things you can do to make sure your site loads quickly and works well. The biggest problem for many sites is photos that were not resized or compressed well for the web. In Word, we learn to resize a picture by grabbing and dragging the corner. But for the web, you need to include a picture that's already been saved at a size close to what you want to use. Web content management systems such as Adventist sometimes handle this resizing seamlessly, but many don't. News feeds and boxes on your site that load information from other websites can also slow your page down. Try turning them off to see if your page will load more quickly. Many people now use their phones to browse the web. Try viewing your site on an iPhone or an Android. Pay special attention to whether your menus work and look to see if anything else is missing. For a more in-depth view of how your site performs, I recommend trying out Google Chrome's developer tools as well as the free web performance tool YSlow. The views that show element sizes and page load times are very helpful. Use them to help find things that load slowly and Google search for how to improve them. I've found that changing a few things can often dramatically improve how well a website works for visitors.
For children's ministries leaders, teaching kids the principles of stewardship goes beyond tithes and offerings. Linda Coe says it also includes learning to manage time, talents, and the environment God has given them.
Teaching stewardship is one of the many lessons we want to impart to our children. God has given them many gifts and talents, and we want to help them learn how to manage their gifts responsibly, how to share them, and also return part of it to the Lord. There are many areas of stewardship. We want our children to learn how to be good managers and be stewards of their time, the time that God has given them, that they can use them wisely to bless others, to help others, and not just for themselves. They are also stewards of the body that God has, the wonderful body temple. We want to teach them how to use their time wisely in eating well, sleeping well, and exercise to keep them strong and healthy. They are also stewards of their gifts and talents. Many of them have musical talents, ability to speak, and also encouragement. So they want them to realize that they could use those gifts to help others and to be a blessing to their classmates, to their friends, and to their family members. And children are also taught to be stewards of the environment, the beautiful earth that the Lord has made. And we want them to learn how to take care of the earth, enjoy it, and not destroy it, and not litter the ground. So we want to start very young to help our children learn how to be great stewards and managers of the Lord.
Raising teenagers poses unique challenges for parents. Willie Oliver says listening might be the best way to influence children transitioning to adulthood.
One of the most challenging relationships in life, second only to marriage, I would say, is parenting. And not only parenting, but parenting teenagers and young adults. Parenting is tricky, difficult, because the way it begins, it's about giving guidance and raising another human being to do well, to be careful, to not get into trouble. Invariably what happens though is once our children get into their teen years, parents tend to overreact to the fact that their children are differentiating. That's a natural part of the developmental cycle. But we get scared, we think, they're going to go off the deep end, and we preach a lot and we say a lot. And here is the takeaway today. We would do so much better with teenagers and with young adults if instead of saying so much, we listened more. The Bible says in the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. That's also true for parents. If you listen more, listen to what they're saying, you'll be able to influence them more. They will feel better about you, and your relationship will be lots better. May God bless you and help you to listen more.
When we come back, this week's iShare report.
And later in the program, how Adventist media outreach is impacting the fastest growing country in West Africa.
It's the story of the gospel. It's the story of Jesus. It's the story of salvation. It's the story of the great controversy between good and evil. Our God will be victorious, and He has commissioned that we can have a part in His victory by sharing the good news.
I don't remember any moments that my parents hugged me or held my hands, or I never heard that they say, "Liana, I love you." I was struggling with a severe depression.
Welcome back. Let's turn to Sergio Gonzalez to find out how one church recently tripled its Sabbath school attendance.
Welcome to iShare, where you bring us the news. This week we have a story from Rob Steed in Warrabee, Australia. Steed recently helped a church change the format of their Sabbath school classes, which greatly impacted attendance. Pastor Hensley Gungadu joins Rob Steed to talk more about the process.
How did the dividing and starting of new classes bring this social awareness and focus on seekers about?
I guess when they divided, there is a struggle to keep up your numbers. And so what happens is that people that don't come to a Sabbath school class would get a call, at least from me, during the week. I'm made aware that such and such have not come to church, and they get a call from me. So now some other people would call them, say, "Where were you? We missed you," type of thing. So there is also the fact that, you can see each other in a class, you can see when you're not there, you are being invited for social activities. I mean, it makes a big difference.
So really the classes have become more accountable, more aware of the pastoral needs of each other?
Yes. And one of the classes that we have, the first one that we opened, in the past 6 months, have accounted for all the baptisms in the Werribee Church.
To learn more, visit Steed's ministry site at maximizer.org.
Our Adventist World Radio report this week comes from Ghana. Dal Chow has more on new opportunities to reach the Western Africa country's diverse population.
I'd like to talk to you about Ghana. Ghana is a country in Western Africa. In 1957, the country was liberated from the United Kingdom and became a new country, forming Ghana from the previous Gold Coast and Togoland. Today, Ghana is a thriving country and is the most advanced and fast-growing country in Western Africa. Even though most of the people in Ghana are Christians, it is still a formidable challenge to the Adventist message. There are over 100 different ethnic groups in Ghana, And even though they live peacefully amongst themselves, we have not reached many of those groups yet with the gospel. A year or so ago, we started a new broadcast system from the Valley View campus of Adventist University outside of Accra, Ghana. Today, that station is up and running and preaching the gospel in 6 local languages and French. And some would ask, why French? Because there are many French-speaking people from the neighboring countries who have come to live in Ghana. We also opened a new station in the city of Swedru on the other side of Accra, Ghana, that will reach close to 4 million people within the city of Accra. And this station is called Obrempon, which in the Chui language is strong man. And we believe with that, the Lord is going to reach a lot of more people in Accra and the entire country of Ghana for the gospel. So pray for us as we continue to preach the word in this great country of West Africa.
Now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, early mission work in Iran.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History, a week that saw the first legally organized Seventh-day Sabbath-keeping Adventist church, that at Parkville, Michigan. On May 13 in 1860, the congregation there formed articles of association in order to erect a church building. The congregation took the name of Parkville Church of Christ's Second Advent, taking the Bible as our rule of faith and discipline. After the formation of the Michigan Conference in 1862, the Parkville Church became a Seventh-day Adventist church. On May 16 in 1911, Frank Oster and Henry Dirksen entered the country they knew as Persia, becoming the first Seventh-day Adventist missionaries to Iran. Both were young men, Americans, who had undergone a year's training at Friedensau, the Adventist college in Germany, and then made a long journey across the Russian Empire to the Caspian Sea, to what is today the country of Azerbaijan, from whence they finally entered Iran. And May 19 in 1780 was the dark day across much of the northeast of the continent of North America. It was widely regarded at the time, and then 60 years later by the Millerites, as fulfilling the prophecies of Matthew 24 and Revelation 6. It thus prepared people's minds for the preaching of Christ's literal soon-coming Second Advent that gave rise first to Millerism and then to Seventh-day Adventism. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching Adventist News Network. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And if you haven't already, check out our app. Now you can watch ANN videos on your iPhone or Android device, as well as access all the latest news, commentaries, and photos.
Our good news for this week comes from Matthew 6, beginning with verse 19. The passage reads, "Do not store up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasure in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also."
And as always, you can visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next week, God bless.